Once again, thank you again for having me, Moselle. And as Moselle mentioned, my name is Elisa A. Smith, and I am a certified plant-based nutritionist, and I'm the founder of a company called the Black Health Academy. So what I do full time is I teach plant-based nutrition and how to use a whole food plant-based diet to eradicate chronic health challenges. But I'm excited to be here with you this evening, talking specifically about the mind and the brain and the power of your diet and a couple other lifestyle modifications in enhancing your neurological functioning. So a little bit about me really quickly. When I became a whole food plant-based vegan, I was already at a healthy weight. So I've lost 65 pounds, but I did that before going completely plant-based. And so one of my favorite pieces of my story of becoming a plant-based vegan is that because I didn't have any pre-existing health conditions, I wasn't on medications for anything, hadn't been diagnosed with anything, I was already at a healthy weight when I made the transition to this lifestyle. The biggest benefit I gained from becoming a whole food plant-based vegan, guys, was how my mind worked. I mean, insane. It went from extreme, it went to extreme clarity, my cognitive functioning, my recall, my ability to concentrate, my executive functioning went through the roof when I became a whole food plant-based vegan several years ago. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today about 3 quick things that have the biggest impact on our mind. I heard the book review earlier, and I know you guys have been diving into diet and nutrition. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and I'm going to workshop it a little with you, meaning I'm just going to write it on the screen for you so you can take notes if you need to, or if it's better to retain the information. Does that sound good? Everybody's looking good this evening. Hey now. Okay. I'm loving it. Hey, hi, Oatha. See some familiar faces in the audience. It's a beautiful thing. Excellent. And I know Moselle mentioned you guys got my recipe book inside of your packet, the Plant-Based Foodie. One of my favorite recipes out of there, if you haven't tried it already, is the chickpea tuna. It's one of the easiest recipes to make. It travels wonderfully if you're ever on the go. So that's one of my favorite recipes. My second favorite, which I usually eat like once a week, is the quinoa meat taco. So if you are a taco person, the quinoa meat tacos in the Plant-Based Foodie would be a shown up fave in my household. All right, so let's get into it tonight, you guys. I'm gonna quickly share with you. Right. And we're going to talk about 3 ways really quickly to enhance your brain functioning. The way I teach this and the reason I teach and help people transition to a whole food plant-based diet is for the obvious reasons of being healthy, for longevity, for alleviating or preventing chronic disease. But we know that's just a cost of entry, right? Optimal health is a human right? So that's just the cost of entry. But the other reason I teach this content and help people adopt this lifestyle is so that they can live in a state of radical obedience. So that means that your health becomes more of an asset than it is a liability. So what we want to do at all times is ensure our health is an asset as opposed to a liability, right? And for many people, their health is actually a liability, meaning it hinders their ability to function highly in life. It hinders their ability to do everything that's required to live obediently and stay in alignment on their assignment on this planet. So the things that Moselle and Heal Thyself is sharing with you throughout this 10-week series, the information that I'm going to share tonight is designed to take your health from a liability to an asset. Right. And if it's already an asset, we want to enhance that as much as possible. Right. So because all of us have a mission on this planet and we want to make sure we're fit enough to fulfill it. All right. So let's talk about the brain, though. Let's get into the good stuff, y'all. And feel free to drop questions or whatever in the chat, and we'll definitely do some open discussion quickly at the end. OK, so there's 3 things that I want to share with you about how to enhance your cognitive function. The first has to do with diet. Now, we all know that a whole food plant-based diet is going to be one of the most optimal diets for overall fitness, right? Physical, mental. But there's one specific thing, and I heard you guys talking about it a little bit during the book review, but I just want to highlight it even more. Sounds like you guys have focused on it quite a bit, but that is sugar. The reason I want to focus on sugar is for one main reason. Number one, sugar is actually vegan, right? Now, arguably, sometimes we talk about, well, the white sugar was whitened using animal bones and blah, blah, blah. But for the sake of everything, sugar is considered vegan, right? So do we know there's a lot of junk food out there, vegan sweets, cakes, pies, regular foods we've heard of like Oreos that are all technically vegan because they don't contain animal products. And so what I find that's a common mistake when people make the transition to a whole food plant-based diet is they do not kick their sugar habit. Very, very common. So we give up what I call meds, right? So what we call in my program meds, and this is meat, eggs, and dairy. And then the S is seafood, right? So we know eliminating these things is going to be, really, really helpful in enhancing your health and on a whole food plant-based diet. But most people do not give up the sugar. And so when I say sugar, guys, I'm talking about the refined processed sugar. I'm talking about the artificial sweeteners. I'm talking about the sugar alcohols, right? A lot of us still continue to consume sugar even after we've eliminated animal products. And this is a huge no when it comes to trying to enhance cognitive performance, trying to maintain those neurological connections as we age, avoid dementia. So how many people know this fun fact? That the most common form of dementia, of course, is Alzheimer's. And did you know that Alzheimer's is now called diabetes 3? Because of the impact that sugar has on the brain. So what it does specifically, right? Let's talk about what it looks like and why it's so important to give it up. So we know sugar is vegan. But what are the neurological impacts of consuming sugar on a regular basis? Even if it's a vegan cake or a vegan cookie, but it's loaded with sugar, right? First is memory loss. That's why we have diabetes 3 for Alzheimer's. One of the most important things for me, guys, as a speaker, as a teacher, as a coach, is I have to have quick access to all of the information that I know, right? Because it can save someone's life. So when you guys maybe ask me questions at the end tonight, I need to be able to access the answer quickly. So a lot of us believe that we lose our memory naturally as we age. But the truth of the matter is we can retain a lot of our functioning by eliminating sugar out of the diet. The second thing that sugar does is it causes hyperactivity in the brain. Right? So this is the scattered brain. Think about a computer and you have like multiple tabs open at one time. And as opposed to being able to finish one task and shut that tab down, we have multiple tabs open all the time and we're constantly jumping around. This is what's happening in our mind, right? So this scatter brain, and another way to say this is an inability to concentrate. So this is a side effect of having a sugar addiction, okay? So we have the hyperactivity in the brain, we have the memory loss, inability to concentrate, right? And it also impairs our executive functioning. So when we think about executive functioning of the brain, this is like real-time memory. This is emotional intelligence. This is being able to focus on a task at one time. Just really like in the moment, being able to map out and plan things efficiently. And we see the decline of our executive functioning of a lot of individuals as they get older, and especially depending on what their diet is and having these inflammatory products like sugar in the diet. So one of the biggest benefits that I noticed when I adopt a whole food plant-based diet is that my mind worked better. However, it wasn't until years after I became a plant-based vegan that I finally gave up sugar, right? Because a lot of people still retain addictions to what I call in my program SOS, salt, oil, and sugar. And so even though you may have given up the animal products, if you don't work just as diligently at eliminating the SOS, you are still going to be a candidate for some chronic health challenges. So it's just as important to eliminate the animal products as it is to eliminate all inflammatory foods, whether they're technically plant-based or not. And sugar is one of them. So I know you guys have probably already talked about sugar. I'm not going to hang out here, but I cannot reinforce enough the importance. It's understand that sugar is also a narcotic. So when I'm teaching my students how to overcome a sugar addiction, it's important to understand that, guys, we cannot moderate an addiction. What does that mean? That means we can't just say, well, I'm just going to have a little bit. I'm just going to eat it in moderation. I'm going to have it on a weekend. It's my birthday. It's a holiday. I know that makes you feel good. However, we don't do that with any other drug, right? Sugar excites the pleasure pathway. It excites that area in the brain that gives us those quick dopamine hits. We flood our pleasure pathway with all of this dopamine. And then what happens is we really become addicted to dopamine, and sugar becomes the vehicle to get that dopamine hit. And when we try and moderate sugar, saying we're just going to have a little bit, we'll just reduce the amount, we never break the biochemical dependency. So the only way, in short, Lisa, what are you saying? Summarize it and make it make sense, Lisa. Let's summarize it here. And I'll write it for you in big letters here, okay? The only way to get over an addiction, okay, is abstinence. It is not moderation. That's what you need to understand. So if you know you're doing good, maybe you've been drinking your water, eating your plants, but you know you still have an affinity to sugar and you've been trying to reduce it. Just eating less of a drug does not help you to overcome the addiction. So the only way to get over an addiction is abstinence. And you guys know this inherently with other addictions, right? We know we don't let an alcoholic have at least one drink a week. We know, cigarettes, you can't smoke. You have to be completely abstinent to break the dependency that you biochemically have on the substance. And if you want your brain to thrive, guys, I cannot stress this enough, you have to eliminate sugar out of your diet. Now, before anybody asks, this certainly, of course, includes the sugar that we know, right? Like the candy, cookies, pies, cakes, all of that, sugary drinks. But this also includes things like refined white flour that's been stripped of all of its fiber, and all it does is causes your blood sugar to shoot up really quickly. And so what happens, what some of my students do sometime, if we're not careful, is they eliminate the obvious sugar, like, okay, I stopped eating my chocolate, I stopped eating my cookies, but then they start leaning on refined processed flour, white flour. And so you want to be really careful with that as well. Does that make sense, guys? Any questions about that before I move on? Okay. All right. So Gina says, do you suggest cold turkey? Gina, I'm going to take you right back here. The only way to get over an addiction is abstinence. Now, I will tell you this, Gina. If you can do what we call, like in the medical field, when we're reducing the intake of a drug to limit the adverse effects of getting off of it, what it's called in the pharmaceutical world is this: deprescribing. So what deprescribing means is you don't go cold turkey off of a drug because it could cause adverse effects. So you slowly reduce it. So do I suggest cold turkey? The answer to that question would be yes, depending on the severity of your current health. Okay, like say, for example, somebody just got diagnosed with cancer, or they're a cancer survivor, or they have, some type of immediate uncontrolled health challenge. You got to remove this out of your diet immediately. You don't have the luxury of reducing. However, if you're going to coach yourself through this process of getting over a sugar addiction, and you can really deprescribe it, meaning you do less down to zero, then sure, totally feel free to use that method where you're reducing it. But please do not think that reduction of a drug is enough. You have to go all the way with complete elimination, and do not deprescribe over a year's time. Okay. I shouldn't see run into you this time in 2023, you're still reducing it, right? You should be able now. So make sure that you have a time frame. Like, I want this out of my household, out of my system within 90 days, right? It's really, really important, because sugar is one of the most deadliest drugs there is. And it's harder to give up, arguably, because it's socially acceptable, right? So you can eat as much sugar you want in public and nobody, blinks an eye, because nobody knows you're battling an addiction, right? And so be very, very careful. The way most plant-based eaters get sugar in their diet is through things like condiments, vegan junk food, our salad dressings, our seasonings, a lot of condiments and things like this, or a processed, quick, convenient vegan junk food is often loaded with sugar. So you have to be very, very careful. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'll move on to number 2. And I feel like, did we lose any people, Moselle? They usually hop off when I get to talking about sugar. Okay, so let's get into number 2, guys. So the second thing we want to do to enhance our cognitive functioning, this one is really quick. You guys all know the power of exercise, but I just want to put a small caveat on it. So exercise is one of the most powerful tools you all have for enhancing your brain functioning. But this is the part that most people don't know that I want to tell you about. The area of your body specifically that you want to intentionally strengthen and that has a direct link to how your mind works is your legs. Okay. So leg strength is directly correlated with cognitive functioning. So it's important to note that the type of exercise that I highly recommend to my students is called HIIT. Okay. So this stands for high intensity interval training. So what does that mean, Lisa? So that means that this really nice, safe, mild walking or low impact exercise we're doing is great. However, if you really want to see a significant difference and feel a significant difference in how you think and perform and how your brain processes information, you have to get the intensity up a little bit, guys. So even if you're walking, if it's on the treadmill, if it's outside, we're moving into the springtime, the summertime, you have to get your heart rate up. You have to get out of breath in small doses. So high intensity means that you increase the intensity of your exercise, whether it's walking, bike riding, elliptical, whatever it is, you turn the intensity up, right? Whether that be the incline or the speed for about a minute or 2, then you bring it back down, catch your breath for a minute or 2, and then turn it back up. And you do intervals of that over however many minutes you're exercising, 15, 20, 30, whatever. So what we want to stop doing is what's called steady state. Okay, so most people get into a comfort zone and they do steady state exercise, meaning they go at the same pace, right? And same intensity for the entire workout. So that means if you're on the treadmill, you just walk at 3.0 for 30 minutes straight. Then you get off and you say, I did it for the day. I'm going home. Maybe you had your magazine on there. You was watching your favorite show on the treadmill, just getting your reps in, saying, yes, I exercise. No. I've seen people reading whole books. I'd be like, what is going on here? Where's the sweat, right? So we gotta get the intensity up, guys, to your comfort level. I understand some of us may have past injuries we're nursing. Maybe we are intimidated by the gym, the machines, or the weights. And this is where you bring in a third party. This is where you bring in a coach, or maybe you follow a workout app. Or maybe you need to talk with someone if you do have a previous injury and you're worried about re-injuring yourself. I completely understand. But if you want to enhance your neurological performance, you have to increase the intensity of your workouts, and you want to at least train legs 3 times a week. Leg day, I trained legs this morning myself. The leg day is my favorite day because what I sell in my company, my recipe book that you guys got in your packet is literally the only physical product that I have, right? But my company runs off of my intellectual property. So my company runs off of everything that's in my brain. So my programs that I teach my students, all the speaking and teaching that I do, events like this, all relies on me having a sharp, sharp mind. And so for me, like the scariest thing in the world is to lose executive functioning, right? Is for me to wake up and have memory loss. Like that is the thing I fear the most. And so I treat my brain as the most valuable organ, right? We have this, our brain is like this 3-pound gelatinous organ that actually uses 25% of the nutrients that you eat. 25% of it goes to your brain, okay? And so for me, it's the most important thing because it's what I sell for. I literally sell my mind for a living. I create curriculums, I create lectures, I create talks. So I train legs. Yes, I've lost 65 pounds and I want to maintain my healthy weight. But my weight loss was so many years ago. I've maintained it over so many years. I no longer have a fear of being overweight again. I don't have a fear of even a chronic disease. I don't have a fear of high blood pressure or high cholesterol, diabetes. Like I've been a whole food, plant-based vegan, living this lifestyle for so long. That's not on my radar anymore. What's on my radar today is how my brain works. So everything I do is always with my mind in mind. And so for me, the leg training is as I want nice legs, but I understand how it impacts how my mind works. And so exercise plays a huge role in that. Exercise is also one of the only functions that's been proven to increase our memory, like improve our memory over time. So it's really, really important. Okay. I don't see any questions or anything about exercise. So I'm gonna get on to the final piece. The third thing I want to share with you about brain functioning. Something that's gonna be really important is pretty much the underlying cause of most disease nowadays. A lot of people think it's genetics. Genetics plays less than a 10% role in your health outcomes. One of the underlying causes of diseases today is chronic stress. So I'm going to make this really quick, but I cannot stress this enough. It doesn't matter how many plants you eat in the kitchen. It doesn't matter how much sugar you eliminate from your diet. It doesn't matter how much exercise you do. It doesn't matter how many supplements you try and take. If you live in a state of chronic stress, all of that becomes almost null and void for a couple of reasons. One, I'm just going to tell you what happens from a physiological standpoint when we're chronically stressed, okay? When you're chronically stressed, this means our two main stress hormones, which is cortisol and adrenaline, are chronically elevated in the body, okay? So chronic stress means these hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, are chronically elevated in the body. When cortisol and adrenaline is elevated, it does a couple of things. So it suppresses the immune system. So suppresses our immune response, which is the last thing we want in this pandemic, okay? Then it also restricts blood flow to the gut, okay, which is not a good thing because we over 60% of our immune system is housed in our gut. But then it also, and this is the one we want to talk about tonight, sorry about that, guys. Hold on. I should say lowers. There we go. Lowers intelligence. So how does being chronically stressed lower intelligence? Well, when your body senses high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, it sends a signal to your brain that you're in danger. Right. And so your brain is getting a signal that you're in danger. Now, you might just simply be stressing out over, I don't know, money or something that just happened at work or something going on in your family is causing you to worry and stress out. But your body thinks you're physically in danger, or really you have an emotional stressor but your body believes you're physically in danger. So what happens is it causes, it activates. So when your intelligence is lowered, what that means is it activates your fight or flight response, and causes, which means that it causes you to make decisions with your hind brain. Ideally, so when you make decisions with your hind brain, this is you reacting. You're not thinking about what needs to happen, you're reacting in the moment. So you have a reactionary posture to life. You're constantly just reacting. Ideally, when you have no chronic stress, when your cortisol and adrenaline is balanced out and not elevated, that is when we make decisions with our forebrain. So we should, and this is more of responding to things in life. So it's a responding versus a reacting response. And so when you are chronically stressed, you don't make sound decisions. Your intelligence is lowered. And so this impedes on your neurological functioning, right? And I could talk about chronic stress all day. But when it comes to neurological performance specifically, guys, whatever you're going through in life, you have to create, what I teach my students, is like, Lisa, how do I overcome chronic stress? We call it creating an exit strategy. So what this means specifically is that you might say, Lisa, I'm stressed out about my money, my debt. I'm not going to just get out of debt in a day or two. So am I just supposed to be stressed over, the next 2 years that it's going to take me to get out of debt? Answer is no. The reason people typically have chronic stress is not because the stressor exists, it's because they don't have an exit strategy. The example that I'll give you really shortly, example that I'll give you is in my 30s, my father walked out of my life when I was much younger. And in my 30s, it started bothering me just out of nowhere. Well, actually, I was listening to this Les Brown speech, and Les Brown was adopted. And he talked about how grateful he was for his adoptive mother because his mother chose him. And it was something about that sentence that triggered me, y'all. And I remember I was at that time pre-med at Wayne State University, and I was sitting on campus in the student center, and I was listening to Les Brown, and he talked about his adoptive mother. And he's like, my mother chose me, and I am so blessed. And when I say the tears started streaming, y'all, and I was just crying because I was like, dang, my father didn't choose me, right? And so it really hit me, right? And so it was in that moment that it started to bother me, 20 some odd years later. I had gone this long without him in my life. And all of a sudden it started to bother me. So it became kind of a stressor. It was on my mind. I started asking my mom about him and all of this stuff. And so am I going to get over these feelings of abandonment that I started feeling, in a week or two? No. But what did I do to relieve my stress myself so that it didn't become a stressor that overwhelmed my body and my mind? I immediately hired a therapist, and I worked with her for 2 years. And it wasn't after 2 years that I felt relief. It was my first day of my first session that I sat down in the chair across from her. Why? Because I finally had an exit strategy. I finally assigned responsibility to someone else in my life to work with me, to co-work with me on this issue. And I didn't have to continue to create narratives in my mind around this thing. So the thing that causes us anxiety and overwhelm is not that it exists oftentimes, but it's just that we don't have an exit strategy. So just sitting down and facing the debt, for example, knowing how much you're in, knowing what it's going to take to get out of it, calling the debtors and seeing, what's the plan? How much can I pay? What can I do? How can I move this around? It's the lack of never seeing the out. That's why people's work stress them out. It's not that they work at this job and that they have to be stressed. It's that they haven't created an exit strategy from that role that no longer serves them. You don't have to get up and quit tomorrow. But if you knew that you will be out of this position in 6 months to a year, and you already have a plan on what's happening next, that brings you relief. And so it's the lack of an exit strategy that causes the pain, not the actual situation. And so if you are chronically stressed, I'm telling you right now, the elevated levels of these stress hormones are impairing your cognitive functioning, lowering your intelligence, and causing you to have a reaction to life as opposed to sound response to life. And that makes a huge difference. Let's see. Someone said, does the cortisol and adrenaline response to stress also cause abdominal midsection weight gain? 100%. What a nice sciencey question to talk about tonight. So let me see. Let me tell you like this without getting too deep into science, but I'll tell you this. Your stress receptors, okay? Stress hormone receptors are located in our midsection. So one of the ways that you can tell a difference between certain types of weight gain. Have you guys ever seen people who were overweight all over, right? So like they're obese or overweight, like whole body, legs, arms, everything, like clearly overweight. Then we've also seen people who carry their weight mostly in their midsection, and maybe their arms and legs are leaner, right? So it's not, the fat is not evenly distributed, right? And so that is a sign that could be a sign that the weight in that midsection is a partly a huge result of stress. So that was a really good question. Carrying weight in your midsection is also one of the most dangerous places to carry weight because it increases your chances of chronic disease. So your waist circumference should be half of your height in inches, right? So let me give you a benchmark to work with if you know you're trying to lose weight or want to lose weight and you're carrying it in your midsection. So whatever your height is, right? So whatever your height is in inches. So let's say somebody is 60 inches tall, okay? Your waist, so this is your height. So your waist circumference should be half of your height. That's it basically, but it's going to be, of course, in inches, same measurement, okay? So so I'm 5'8", so I'm 68 inches tall, okay? I'm 5 feet, 12 times 5 is 60 plus 8 inches. So I'm personally 68 inches tall, which means my waist should never be any more than 34 inches in circumference. Does that make sense, everyone? So the safe place for you to be with regard to midsection is your waist should be half of your height in inches. If you want to, give it a benchmark. Okay, so those are the 3 things that I wanted to share with you guys tonight about neurological functioning. For those of you who are interested in learning more about stress or overcoming stress, I'm actually doing a masterclass on stress in the beginning of April. I do a class every first Saturday of the month called Get Planted, an introduction to a whole food plant-based lifestyle. My topic for April is actually overcoming chronic stress. My students requested it. So if you guys, it doesn't cost anything. I do this class every first Saturday of the month. I'm gonna drop the link for you guys in the chat to register if you want to learn more about overcoming chronic stress, creating exit strategies, but more importantly, the impact that it has on your health. I think that will be really helpful for a lot of people. And I also have a master class about how to overcome a sugar addiction as well. That we did at one of our first Saturday classes. So here's the link in the chat for the first Saturday class. I do this class every month, every first Saturday of the month. The one we did in March was I did a big masterclass about hypertension and high cholesterol, the cause of them, the side effects of the medication, and how to overcome both of those conditions. And so I house all of these master classes inside of my membership, the Black Health Academy, which is complimentary. So for those of you who may want to learn more or get access to those master classes about overcoming a sugar addiction or overcoming hypertension and high cholesterol, then I'll put that link here in the chat for you. You can join the Black Health Academy at no cost. This is completely free. I just do it for the community. And that's where you can access the replays to those master classes. But feel free to join me every first Saturday if you like my style and you want to talk about this stuff a little more. That's all I got, Moselle, my own time.